Hello students, let us see a new topic, that is bioinorganic chemistry. So what do you mean by bioinorganic chemistry generally? So the bioinorganic chemistry is nothing but here branch of chemistry which deals with the study of materials and chemical changes in living organisms. Means bio means living organisms. Okay, so here the branch of chemistry mainly deals with materials and also chemical changes in living organisms, we can say. Here, this study includes some biological changes in chemistry, which means here matter, growth, reproduction, and also process like here digestion, excretion, reaction, which will lead to growth and also multiplication of cells, which will produce the energy. So, mainly here in biological chemistry, so in bioinorganic chemistry, the metals are going to present in our body. So here what type of metals, so here if you have seen sodium, chlorine, potassium, so these are present in our red blood cells automatically. The potassium, or if you take sodium, or if you take chlorine, so these are going to present in a red blood cells. And also if you take mammals, so what do you mean by mammals? Mammals is nothing but the babies of horses, human beings, means which will take milk, okay, by birth, which are going to take milk, those type of things we call it as mammals, like human beings, horses, rabbits, rats. So this all indicates mammals. So means what here, they will play very significant role. So coming to here, potassium ion, so sodium ion, so maximum here the potassium or the sodium, if you are taking over here, it should be 7 is to 1. So but in dogs and cats it should be 1 is to 5. So depending upon this, so it will work our body, and also here where we can grow. So these type of things will come under the bioinorganic chemistry. So generally this bioinorganic chemistry is divided into two types, that is organic and inorganic. If you have seen here, essential and non-essential compounds, so there is micro and macro. So what do you mean by essential and what do you mean by non-essential? So here this essential consists of total 19 elements and non-essential consist of 10 elements. Micro 9 elements it will take, and macro 10 elements it will take. So micro in the sense here the elements which is present in very smaller quantity in our body, that is cobalt, zinc, calcium and chlorine. If you take macro which is large amount present in our body, that is iodine, iron, sodium, potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, copper. So non essential means we are not taken, means through our diet will be taken, but it is not important for our life. So here bromine, boron, silicon, aluminum, tin, lead, arsenic, titanium, vanadium, so these all will come under the non-essential elements. So now let us see what is essential elements, what is non-essential elements. So here the essential elements is nothing but what means, so which is not taken through our diet but it is supplied in our body, that one we call it as here essential elements. So generally to maintain the normal state of the tissue of our body, so that one we call it as what here, essential elements. These are micro elements and macro elements. So here macro elements is nothing but here which is required in our diet more than 1 milligram, means large amount we require. So those type of things we call it as here macro elements. And here minimum 60 to 80% is going to present in our human body, that is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium. So these are the elements which is present in larger amounts. If you take hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, so these are also present in very large amount. Air and water contains CO2, N2, H2, right? So sources like carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, so these are also present as a essential elements. If you have seen micro elements, so these are all macro elements, means which is taken through diet in larger amounts. When you have seen micro, so micro means what here, very small amount, means very small amount through our diet we are going to take, only in milligrams we are going to take, that is copper, zinc, cobalt, cadmium, manganese, molybdenum, iodine, fluorine. So this all come under this elements. So this is also known as here trace elements, we can say. So these are also known as what here, trace elements. So now let us see what are non-essential elements. So these are taken through our diet, but it is not supplied in our body. Already it is going to present in our body. That one we call it as what here, non-essential elements. So those elements here, bromine, boron, silicon, arsenic, nickel, aluminum, lead, stannic, vanadium. So these are the elements which is going to present in our body. So these are not clearly known also. So these are known as non-essential elements. So this is about introduction and classification of bioinorganic chemistry. So now let us see here role of metal ions in biological systems. So as we have told here, essential elements, about essential elements we have told, so which are having micro and also macro. So let us see each element, what happens if more, if we take, less if we take. So generally where it is going to present. So here iodine, if you have seen iodine, so here iodine is present in many organisms, that is mainly thyroxine. Thyroxine in the sense here thyroid glands, we can say. So there is a regulation, growth, metabolism, amphibian metamorphism. So metabolism is nothing but what here, the body which we feel you to eat and drink in energy. So this one we call it as metabolism, we can say here. And also amphibian metamorphosis is nothing but here vertebrates. We'll be having invertebrates and also vertebrates. So those type of things we call it as vertebrates. So iodine is mainly present over here, goiter disease. Goiter disease is nothing but what here, so the thyroid gland is going to present over the neck. That one we call it as goiter disease. If iodine is less or iodine is more, we are going to get the thyroid. And next one we are having bromine. Bromine is mainly important for mammals and red algae. Mammals in the sense which will take the milk through birth, that one we call it as mammals and red algae. So molybdenum is nothing but what here, it is green algae, so which is used in enzymes connected with nitrate reduction and nitrogen fixation. And zinc mainly used for what here, it useful for all organisms, which is important role in sexual maturation and also reproduction, we can say. So mainly it is coiled through ribosomes and it is used more than 70 enzymes. And if you have seen copper, so copper is also important for all organisms. It is a constituent of hemocyanin in the sense where the copper is present at a central metal atom, and that one we call it as hemocyanin. And here the copper is bonded with here 4 pyrrole rings and in between copper atom. So and also redox enzymes. If you take fluorine is a main important element which is used as calcium fluoride by mollusk. Mollusk is nothing but here sea animals, we can say. So the sea animals we call it as here mollusk. And sulfur, it is also most important protein. It is regulated through our body as a H2S gas. And here bacteria, mainly oxidized by bacteria, which replaces water in photosynthesis from some bacteria, we can say. Here mainly it is a tertiary structure of proteins. So generally proteins will be having primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary structures. That the sulfur will act as a tertiary structure of proteins. H2SO4 is main important, we can say, for digestion fluids. It is also involved in deoxidation process, fat metabolism and vitamins also. So next, magnesium. Magnesium is very important organism. It is also, so mainly it is present in chlorophyll. As we have seen here, photosynthesis reaction 6CO2 plus O2 12H2O gives rise to C6H12O6. In that chlorophyll is present, right? In between chlorophyll, the metal ion present over here is magnesium. So mainly the magnesium is used as a metal which will activate all enzymes and also electrochemical functions. And silicon is mainly used for skeletal development and growth in rats and chicks, so which is useful for higher plants also. Form of silicon dioxide for some sponges, limpets, protozoa and in diatoms. So sponges, limpets, protozoa is nothing but here we'll be having inside of the sea like plants some fungus. So those type of things all we call it as here sponges and limpets. And chlorine, as we know that very regularly we are going to use the chlorine, that is by combining with sodium, that is NaCl salt, which is also useful for mammals and also higher plants. So it is important in digestive juices also. It causes, if chloride is less, it causes impaired growth, the growth will be less for children. And potassium is blue green algae, we can say. It is mainly cardiac function, means heart diseases and also nerve impulses, so intercellular fluid in animals. So these are the things it is going to work. Manganese, manganese activates many enzymes in our body. If it is less, soil causes here, if it is less, manganese is less, bone malformation in growing chicks and infertility in soils we are going to get. Calcium, as we all know, calcium is going to present in our bones, cell walls, and it is a structural component also. So mainly if it is less, what happens, blood clotting is going to increase. Chromium, chromium mainly used for diabetes and glucose metabolism, and vanadium is used for rats and chicks, acidians, and also feather development in animals. There is a development of the skin, and it will reduce, if it is less, they reduces the growth and also impaired tooth, bone metabolism. So this is all going to present. Cobalt, cobalt mainly used for mammals, it activates enzymes and vitamin B12. Selenium, selenium also used for mammals and higher plants. It's protect us from heavy metal ions, that is, which is a component of glutathione peroxidase. Phosphorus, phosphorus is used for DNA, RNA, metabolic intermediates, ADP, adenosine diphosphate, and ATP, adenosine triphosphate, bones, some shells, membrane, phospholipids, teeth. So this is used. Nickel, so nickel is nothing but many plant urases, that is, if deficiency, if nickel is less, rats and chicks causes liver function and morphology. So these are the some of the functions which is present in the essential elements. So next topic, let us see here, geochemical distribution of elements. So geo is nothing but what here, earth. So mainly we deal about the earth, means the earth crust. In the earth crust we will be having some crystals, right, some rocks. So those type of things contains metals. So here when you have seen here, geochemical distribution of elements is nothing but here mainly we can speak about some metals which is present in the environment, which is influenced by the geochemical species. So generally here it is also give some knowledge about the geochemical distribution of elements. So generally what do you mean by geochemical distribution of elements is nothing but here the knowledge of the geochemical distribution of elements involves elucidation of the relative absolute abundances of the chemical element in the earth. Means what here it involves, mainly it will give the structure and some correct exact value of the chemical elements in the earth crust. So that is atmosphere we can see, and hydrosphere also. So mainly it is one of the major part in science, that is geochemistry, which is the study of distribution of chemical elements in space and time and governing this distribution. So generally these are classified into several types, that is siderophile, chalcophile, lithophile, hydrophile, and thalassophile. So with atmophile are, which is used to denote the particular geochemical energies of elements. Okay, so here chemical affinity, chemical affinity is nothing but what here, which is a dissimilar chemical species we can say, which is not a similar one. So those type of things, what happens, they will form some chemical compound. So here tendency of molecule to associate with another molecule. For example, HCl I have taken, H plus Cl minus, means what, different molecules, it is not similar molecule. So those type of things mainly it produces the chemical affinity here. Here also chemical affinity also we can say what here, tendency of an atom or compound to combine by chemical reaction with atoms or compounds of unlike composition. Composition in the sense here different concentration it should have. Mainly it focuses on geometry. There is some principles, that is first one is which is the distribution and redistribution of elements, ionic species and isotope ratios in earth materials. So means what is the first principle? To understand the principles, what happens here? We will take distribution and also redistribution of elements, ionic species and isotope ratios in earth materials, so that the formation of mineral so what happens when you distribute or redistribute of elements, so the mineral is going to form, so under certain conditions, that is pressure, temperature. So that is nothing but first principle. And second one also here, second focus is nothing but here there will be change in mineral assemblages, means what? Mineral concentrations, they can change the concentration of minerals. Isotope, what do you mean by isotope? Same atomic number, different mass number, we call it as isotopic. The issues, if you're given assemblage, means if you're giving some value, so it will show different conditions, and also they will interact with fluids like liquids. So this is the second focus that geochemistry has made. And third focus is nothing but quality of crude oil. So mainly from earth crust only we are going to get petrol, fuels, everything, right? So mainly they also see the quality of crude oil in giving. So the scientist Goldsmith has classified the different elements, that is here generally basing upon the periodic table. So if you have observed over here in periodic table from actinides generally we say what here, what it is a man-made element. So why? Because here those elements are proven by the artificially, not by the natural one. So that's why we can say radioactive elements, or we will be saying that it is a man-made element. So like that in periodic table, if you have seen, the geochemical classification depends upon the earth based on four, that is lithophile, which is a rock loving, xerophile, iron loving, chalcophile, sulfide, ore loving, or chalcogen is nothing but oxygen family. Atomophile, so atomophile is nothing but gas or volatile. Volatile means which we can easily evaporate the molecules. So let us see each one here, that is lithophile. So lithophile is nothing but what here, element which generally bond to oxygen in silicates and oxides, they form the ionic bond. And siderophile is nothing but what here, metals including iron in the periodic table, and here transition elements mainly we see, and which exhibit metallic bonding, right? So transition elements automatically form the what here, metallic bonding. Chalcogen is nothing but what, chalcophile, sulfur, selenium, tellurium, antimony and arsenic. So these form what here, covalent bond. Lithophile will form ionic bond, and siderophile will form metallic bond. Chalcophile will form covalent bond. Atomophile will form covalently bonded gases, we can say. Here the lithophile elements means here aluminium, barium, boron, beryllium, bromine, calcium, chlorine. So these all indicates here. So these are the elements, some of the elements, lanthanides, rare earth elements. So these all elements indicates lithophile elements, means which they can form the ionic bond, we can say. So mainly highly react to metals, we can say, for S block and F block elements. So there will be some non-metals also which will react with metals of D block like titanium and zirconium and vanadium. So if you have seen siderophile, the elements here mainly Fe, Co, Nm, osmium, palladium. So these all will come under the here siderophile. Chalcophile mainly concentrated in sulfur and also oxygen, we can say. Why? Because here oxygen will be having less affinity, less energy compared to the sulfur. So here sulfur is insoluble compound. Sometimes sulfur may act as poisonous gas also. So these are the elements which is used as this chalcophile. Atomophile, as I have told you, gas phase. So then what happens here? The elements are present over here is water, mainly we can take over here hydrogen, nitrogen, carbon are the elements. So this is nothing but geochemical distribution. So now let us see what is sodium pump. Sodium pump is nothing but here. So we'll speak about enzymes first. So what is the mechanism of enzyme? As we will be seeing in previous classes, +1 +2 classes. So enzyme is which is going to function in our body. So what is the mechanism in that? So there is a substrate molecule, which is known as reactant molecule. So here if we place an enzyme will be having some active site. So this substrate molecule will come and add to the active site. There is a formation of intermediate with substrate and enzyme. So finally what happens, again it is divided as a product and it will form it as a again substrate enzyme molecule. So means what we are saying here, it is a lock and key model we are seeing. Okay, so how you fix key to the lock. So like this, the lock will be having some hole to fix the key, right? So that one we call it as active site. So at the same way here, the sodium and also potassium is going to present in the active site. Means simply we can say ion transport, we call it as here sodium pump. Means what here, which involves both active expulsion of sodium ion and also potassium ions. We call it as what here, sodium pump. So here the ions is going to transfer from one place to another place. Means so from inside to outside in the animal cells it is going to produce. Means in animal cells the concentration of Na plus and K plus ions are here. For sodium it will be having 0.01 m, and for potassium it is having 0.15 m. Generally in fluid cells, the concentration of sodium and potassium will be 0.15 m, 0.003 m. M indicates here molarity, which indicates concentration. So then it requires some energy. It is having less energy, no? So that's why we are taking, when doing hydrolysis, ATP. Mainly what happens here, kidney and brain use 70% of energy from ATP. So here for its transport. So when you do hydrolysis, what happens, we are going to get the ADP and it releases energy which is known as here exothermic reaction. It is going to take place. So when you do hydrolysis, means what happens, the K plus will again come back into the cell. So let us see in the diagram over here in sodium pump. So here when you have observed here in sodium pump, so see here first we are taking a extracellular compound, which is this one binding site. Means what here it is a active site, it is present. So intracellular, so this is nothing but what here, intracellular molecule. So this intracellular molecule sodium binds towards what here, binds to the ATP. So means what happens here, first we are giving the, means here sodium ions are going to present. In this sodium ions is binded this site. So then we are giving some energy, some protein, that is adenosine diphosphate or triphosphate we are giving. So then what happens, this inner sodium molecule, the sodium is going to present inside this cell and potassium is going to present outside this cell. After some energy you have applied, so then what happens, potassium will come inside and sodium will go outside. So now what happens, there is a change of the structure when you are adding. These are original structures where sodium is binding to this site. Then after that what happens here, after that when you add some proteins, means like ADP or ATP, so there is a formation of this structure. So this structure, what happens again, after changing the structure, the potassium ions easily come and attack to this site. So then again what happens, again you will be adding some phosphate which is removed from protein and again it will return back to the structure. So this is the process is going to happen in the sodium pump. First what we have taken, an enzyme. In enzyme the active site is binded by sodium ions. The sodium ions here what happening, they were adding with phosphate, that is adenosine diphosphate. So this phosphate is going to here protein based. So the protein base is changes the structure. So the structure is going to what I have seen. So this is the structure. So this is the structure of the compound. So as I have told you, so now let us see the next topic, that is carbonic anhydrase and carbonic peptidase. So carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic anhydrase is nothing but what here? It is an intercellular enzyme, means which is present inside the red blood cells with higher concentration. We call it as carbonic anhydrase. So this enzyme mainly help for interconversion of carbon dioxide and water into bicarbonate salts, so which is dissociated into bicarbonate ions. Let us see the mechanism over here. So here, if you have observed here, H2O and CO2, when you combine, so what happening, it is giving hydrogen bicarbonate. So then it is dissociated into ions as hydrogen carbonate and H plus ions. Means mainly the concentration, more concentration is going to present in the red blood cells, means which is present inside the enzyme. So it is mainly observed in 1933 in red blood cells of the cows. So it is also found in mainly mammalian tissues. So mammalian tissues, plants and bacteria we can see, and also here respiration, mainly it is useful for respiration. Why? Because here red blood cells will convert carbon dioxide to carbonate ions and bicarbonic acid. This one we call it as bicarbonic acid. So where red blood cells reach the lungs and enzymes convert bicarbonate ions again back to carbon dioxide, which we breathe out. So we will be getting breathing, right? So the red blood cells will go to the lungs. So again what happens when we inhale the carbon dioxide, the bicarbonate ions is going back to again what happens, carbon dioxide when we breathe out. So this is nothing but carbonic anhydrase. So there may be imbalances sometimes. So they will be getting hypokalemia and natremia, metabolic acidosis, renal impairments. Hypokalemia is nothing but what, where potassium is less, we call it as hypokalemia. Hyponatremia is also similar to that only here. So here acid diseases, renal impairment, growth diseases. So these type of things will be causing when if any imbalance is going to occur. So now carboxypeptidase. Carboxypeptidase is a protein which is present as a enzyme. So peptide bonds. What do you mean by peptide? In proteins mainly it is present. So generally NHCO bond. NHCO bond, we call it as peptide bond here. So which is present at the C terminal end of a protein or peptide. So this is generally aminopeptidase we can say, which break the peptide bond at N terminal of proteins. So here mainly we can see it is a aromatic or branched hydrocarbon chains we can see. Okay, so the carboxypeptidase removes C terminal amino acids from peptides and proteins and play some role in the blood coagulation, fibrosis, inflammation, food digestion. So this all is going to present in the carboxypeptidase. So now let us see here trace elements, which what are the trace elements and what are the enzymes and what are the functions and symptoms. If it is less, if it is more, what are the symptoms? Let us see here. The trace element is nothing but micro elements which is present in our living body. If you have seen zinc, so zinc is having the enzyme here carbonic anhydrase and peptidase, just now we have seen, which is also known as dehydrogenase. So what is its biological function? Proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, bone metabolism. So these are the biological functions. And symptoms, if zinc is less in our body, we are going to get diarrhea, vomiting, fever, taste disorders. If symptoms is more in our body, it is going to get nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, anemia and also taste disorders. So let us see next one, copper. Copper is having the enzymes as monoamine oxidase, cytochrome oxidase, ascorbic oxidase. So if you see the psychological functions here, bone metabolism, hemophysis, connective tissue metabolisms. If copper is less in our body, we are going to get anemia, leukemia and neutropenia, bone changes. And if it is more in our body, we are going to get nausea, vomiting, pepticles and CNS, central nervous system will get disorder, growth retardation we are going to get. If you have seen chromium, chromium is nothing but here we are having enzymes as glucose, and here the function we are going to have carbohydrates, cholesterol, protein metabolism. If it is less in our body, so we will be having reduced respiratory, weight loss. If it is more in our body, nausea, vomiting and also ulcers, growth retardation we are going to get. If you see manganese enzymes are arginase, pyruvate, carboxylase, and here the functions are bone, carbohydrate and lipid metabolism. If it is less in our body, we are getting cholesterol, reduced coagulation, hair reddening, and also reduced serum. If it is more in our body, Parkinson diseases we are going to get, and also loss of vigor, anorexia, headache. Means what here? Our eyes will be getting anorexia is nothing but here some type of mattu will be saying, no? So those type of things. And molybdenum enzymes over here, xanthine oxidase, xanthine dehydrogenase, aldehyde oxidase. So here amino acids, uric acid, sulfuric acid metabolism are the psychological functions. Here the diseases we are going to get is polyphenia, night blindness, irritability, coma we are going to get, and also hyperurinase diseases we are going to get for molybdenum. If more cobalt, as we know, cobalt, vitamin B12 is the enzyme, and here pernicious anemia we are going to get, means less growth we are going to get, cobalt poisoning we are going to get. And iodine, as we know, thyroid hormones, tissue metabolism. Goiter disease is nothing but thyroid disease which is less. If it is more also, thyroid we are going to get. So this is nothing but some of the elements, trace elements which is less, and what are the diseases we are causing. If it is more, what are the diseases we are getting. So now let us see here toxic elements which are poisonous elements. So if it is present, if we take these type of things, what happens, let us see. First one is mercury. So generally mercury is found in air, water, soil. So these three forms it is going to form, whether it is in elemental or metallic forms. So generally mercury will form it as Hg0, Hg plus, Hg plus 2, and organic mercury is nothing but methyl or ethyl mercury. So generally elemental mercury is liquid at room temperature, so which will be evaporated in temperature. So here mainly it is mercury is very poisonous, hazardous than liquid form. Means when it is in solid form it is hazardous, when it is liquid form it is not that much hazardous. So here means what happens when you inhale this large amount of mercury, so automatically organic mercury are more toxic than inorganic compounds. Why? Because there is a formation of the CH3, mercury. Organic compounds are very toxic, we can say. So this is about mercury. So now let us see about cadmium. So cadmium also present in soil, minerals, water, and like sulfide, sulfate, carbonate, chloride and hydroxide, cadmium. So if you take high level of cadmium in water, air and soil can occur due to industrial activities, we can say. So when it is contaminated, means here industries, mainly alloy industries, battery, glass, electroplastic, so this will be formed as a toxic in nature. So this cadmium, but through smoking, so through smoking we are getting, if concentration changes in blood and urine, automatically it will become a toxic. So mainly smokers if you have seen cadmium concentration in blood, and the non-smokers cadmium concentration if we have observed, so non smokers will be getting more concentration compared to the smokers. So here cadmium is very contaminated, so it is also long term disorder, we can see. And next one, lead. So lead, if you have observed, it is a harmful environmental pollutant which is used for pesticides mainly, we can say. So here skin, so it is mainly respiratory and digestive systems, mainly the lead is present over here. So there is a neurological and respiratory, urinary, cardiovascular disorders we are going to get because of the lead also. So it will mix in blood, and also there is a poisonous in nature. Here mainly this lead is used to treat human health in recent years. And arsenic is also one of the toxic nature, and here it is one of the king of poison, we can say. It is metalloid and also inorganic arsenic, As plus 3 and As plus 5. So if you take organic arsenic, there is more toxic in nature compared to the inorganic toxic. So then here when you take mainly food and water. Okay, so skin contact, inhalation, so chronic diseases, lung diseases, and also here mainly metal. It will show both metallic and non-metallic character, and also here some dehydrogenase is going to happen. So these are the enzymes which are going to present over the ATP and ADP, which is going to present as a arsenic. Next one we are having chromium. Chromium is one of the earth crust and seawater mineral. So it is mainly heavy metal, we can say. The oxidation changes from +2 to +6. So the most stable forms will form a diseases through human body, that is thermal, means skin diseases, neurological, gastrointestinal diseases. So there will be several changes also. Cancers, we are going to get lungs, larynx, bladder, kidney, testicles, bones, thyroid. So these are the cancers we are causing through chromium. So these are the some of the elements which we cause some poisonous nature, which we have to take in very less amount. So now chelating agents in medicine. Chelating agents is, as you know, that it is a ring type of structure which bind iron, lead, copper in the blood and use it to treat high levels of metals. So this chelating agents will act as medicine for cancer patients mainly. So here it is heavy metal poisoning for the treatment, even though that, but in medicine chelating agents are used to remove toxic metals from the body, used for the treatment of cancer. Here we can use it as calcium disodium ethylene diamine tetraestic acid, which is used mainly chelating agent. So which is used for dimercaprol and caprosuccinic acid. So which is used to treat cancer patients. Means they cannot treat the cancer, but what happens, they can they can remove the some cells which is coming, okay, through cancer. So this is nothing but chelating agent. And cisplatin is one of the cancer agent which is used for tumors, for cancers, tumors like cancers mainly. So it kills cancer cells by damaging DNA and also its replication. It can treat cancers like testicular, ovarian, breast cancer, bladder, head and neck, lung. So these are the cancers. Cisplatin, this is the structure which can cure the, means which can kill the cancer cells in our body. So this is nothing but chelating agent and cisplatin. Next we are having biological significance of iron. Here biological significance, what are the sources we have to take to get the iron in our body? That is liver, kidney, beans, carrot, potato, apples, egg yolk. So iron is mainly stored in liver. So here we can take, if we take large amount of iron in our body, the normal diet should be 15 to 20 only we have to take. Adults contain 4 grams. Here generally what is the functions of the iron? Oxygen carries to blood, oxygen supplies to muscles. So here mainly it will develop the red blood cells, relation with cell nucleus, oxidation also. So basing upon this, iron will be having the hemoglobin structure and also myoglobin. Hemoglobin is nothing but what here? Hemoglobin is also known as metalloporphyrin. Hemoglobin mainly iron is going to present. These 4 are pyrrole rings. So this is a histidine globular. So where here it one call it as globular protein, and here this one we call it as protein. So it is hemoglobin like, so metals like iron and magnesium, if it is surrounded by a tetrapyrrole rings, we call it as what? Metalloporphyrin. Hemoglobin is also known as what here? Metalloporphyrin. So it is a red pigment of blood which is present in red blood cells, we can say. It is a conjugated chromoprotein, we can say. The protein is globin, prostic group iron containing complex called heme or hemine. If the iron, means it is present in +2 state. If iron atom is present in ferric state, that one we call it as hemine, which carries positive charge. If it is present in +2 state, that one we call it as heme, which is a neutral molecule. And here one Hb molecule contains here 4 heme groups, right? 1 2 3 4. So 4 globins. So here one ferric Fe atom and one Hb molecule and 4 heme molecule, means what here? Here the coordination number will be 4. And here the ring structure present in heme, means this one. The ring structure present in heme is known as pyrene ring. In this ring, Fe is bonded to 4 pyrrole rings here. 5th position occupied by histidine globular, and here when you treat with oxygen Hb hemoglobin with oxygen, it will form the oxyhemoglobin, and Fe is low spin state and it is diamagnetic. Low spin is nothing but what? The electrons present in the T2z orbital only, so which carries lungs to tissues in the body. That means deoxyhemoglobin happens. If it is in high spin state, it is paramagnetic, that is carboxy hemoglobin, which is the stable compound, and it can also react with carbon dioxide, carbenohemoglobin. So then what happens here? Transport of CO2 from tissue to lungs, so it will maintain pH level of the blood, and also here the molecular weight we are having over here is 64,500 grams. So the buffer solution indicates here ammonium chloride and ammonium hydroxide. So what are the functions of hemoglobin? So here the functions of hemoglobin is mainly oxygen carries from lungs to tissues in the body, and transport of CO2 from tissue to lungs, and also maintain viscosity of blood, and also loss of hemoglobin causes respiratory disorder and finally leads to death over here. Okay, so then brief note on myoglobin. This one and this one is similar. So here the magnesium is going to present, and here iron is going to present. It is a small protein which is present in heart and skeletal muscles that binds oxygen. We can say it trap oxygen with muscle cells and also allow the cells to produce energy required for muscles to contract. When heart or skeletal muscle is injured, myoglobin is released in the body. Okay, so it mainly affects the heart and skeletal muscles. Means if any break is there, automatically this myoglobin will act. So here the levels measured within a few hours will form an injury, we can see. So generally this myoglobin, so here the myoglobin is filtered from blood by kidneys and is also released in the urine. Larger quantities of myoglobin are toxic in the kidneys. If you take more amount, so what happens? The kidneys will get spoiled and it also released into bloodstream. Then we can severe tumors and muscle injuries, so which damages the kidney failure we are going to get mainly here due to the presence of myoglobin. So this urine also help to detect the myoglobin condition. So thank you girls, this is nothing but bioinorganic chemistry.